Welcome back to Haven't Read It. I got some stories today from Malicious Compliance. Today's first story is the boss didn't trust his team, so I built a system to track every move we made. A few years ago, I worked at a mid-sized company where the atmosphere was, let's say, not ideal. The manager had this ever-growing suspicion that people were just waiting for the right time to leave. Of course. He believed that morale was low and that the team was barely holding it together. And while I'm not sure where he got this idea, he started imposing more and more controls on us to monitor productivity. One day he introduced a new rule. Every task, every email, every conversation must be logged, no exceptions. The justification? I need to know exactly what you're doing, and I need to be sure nothing's falling through the cracks. Now here's the problem. My team was already working at full capacity, dealing with multiple tasks every single day. But suddenly we were being told to log everything. If you were sending a simple email, you had to log it. Writing a report, log it. Setting up a meeting, log it. Every little action had to be documented. I tried explaining how ridiculous this was, but the response was always the same. I need to make sure you're on task. He didn't trust us to do our jobs, so he created a system where every move had to be tracked and validated by someone else. I didn't see any way out of it, so I decided to comply. But I wasn't going to make it easy. I started logging everything. I mean everything, down to the smallest task. Simple emails, logged. A quick 10-minute meeting to touch base, logged. I even started logging the amount of time I spent thinking about the best way to word my emails. Because hey, it was part of the task, right? To top it off, I made sure my logs were as detailed as hell. I meticulously logged every action no matter how insignificant. The result? It was chaos. The logs were piling up, but all they did was waste more of my time. The manager was reviewing everything and asking questions about tasks that had no bearing on the big picture. Meanwhile, I could barely get through a day without constantly being interrupted by the need to document my every move. And then it happened. The manager finally asked, "Why is everything taking so long?" I gave him a simple reply. "You asked for everything to be logged." He didn't like hearing that, but the best part was when he finally realized that the whole system was making us less productive. His solution? We were told just to log what's necessary? No, man. The policy was quietly dropped, and things slowly started to return to normal. But by then, I had already built something of my own. After all the frustration of logging every single action, I realized there had to be a better way. So I started building a tool that could automatically track everything, without the annoying back and forth or wasted time. I wasn't looking to change the whole company. I just wanted a way to do my job without all the micromanagement. What started as a workaround eventually grew into a full-fledged solution, and I realized that this frustration had pushed me to create something far more effective than the system we were using. Funny how the lack of trust can sometimes spark the most innovative ideas. Top comment, but did you log the time you spent writing logs? OP says, yeah, I did. I even logged the time I spent writing the logs. If I was going to follow the rules, I figured I might as well do it properly. He finally realized that the whole system was making us less productive. Only a genius could have figured it out beforehand. Just like the geniuses who react to late projects by daily all-hands, 2-hour status meetings until we figure out why we're no longer on track. That's pretty funny. Someone else says, I hope you sold a solution to him. He still paid me a ton of money for the annual maintenance. Dang. Do you log the time you spend creating invoices for him? Yep, I did. Anything that took time to be logged, so even creating invoices got its own entry. I had a manager who made me send him a list at the end of each day of everything I worked on that day. Some days the list was 15 items long, sometimes it was 3. When it was 3, he demanded an explanation of why I got so much less done. I was working in shipping logistics. Some purchase orders had 5 items I had to key in that were already standard products in our system. Took 2 minutes. And some had 100 specialty items that the boss negotiated that weren't in the system and had to be created from scratch. Took 2 hours. He did not seem to understand the difference. In his mind, it should all take the same amount of time. Managers are usually morons. Someone says, can't confirm. Source, I'm a manager. Story number 2. You want me to work my exact hours? Okay, no problem. A few years ago, my manager decided to crack down on workplace discipline. His first rule, everyone had to work their exact scheduled hours, no more, no less. If your shift was 9 to 5, you couldn't start a minute early or leave a minute late. Now, I'm the kind of person who likes to finish what I'm working on, even if it means staying a little past my shift. But fine, rules are rules. At 5 sharp, I started dropping everything. Middle of a call with a client? Sorry, it's 5. Let's pick this up tomorrow. Writing an email? Draft saved, computer shut down. My coworkers followed suit. Soon the office was a ghost town at exactly 5:01 every day. It didn't take long for chaos to erupt. Deadlines got missed, calls were dropped, and clients weren't happy. Management started to notice. After about 2 weeks, the rule magically disappeared, and we were told, just do what you need to do to get the job done. Funny how things change when you follow orders too perfectly. Edit/update. A lot of people asked if this was about working long hours. It wasn't. The issue was flexibility. Many of us liked starting early or staying late when it suited us, but the policy forced us into rigid schedules, which didn't work out for how he liked to manage our workloads. When they realized flexibility made things smoother, they backtracked fast. Top comment says, it's almost as if incredibly strict rules with no flexibility for different circumstances is harmful to both productivity and morale. OP response says, exactly. You may not achieve what you want by being rigid to things. Someone responds to OP saying, it's continually baffling to me how many people just rigidly follow rules without ever thinking about why the rule exists or what goal the rule is intended to serve. Second top comment. But why in the world did you ever decide to go back to working longer than they were paying you? Asked the teacher. OP says, that was not about working long hours, but flexibility. Earlier, I used to work late, but then I used to make that up by extending hours. Someone else says, I've had a similar experience at my work recently. Got pulled up by the admin lady for being 20 seconds late back from break. Now my breaks are taken to the exact minute whether I need the full break or not, and I do not work a second off after my finishing time, tasks completed or otherwise. In trying to crack down on perceived tardiness, they've lost out on an unknown amount of potential free labor in the future. Time theft works both ways. OP says, true, they think they can increase productivity by micromanagement. If you treat your employees well, they will give their more than 100%. It works both ways. Final story for today. Not my task, not my problem. A little bit of background before I share the story. Names changed to protect myself from retaliation because my boss is that petty. The end of December, my old boss stepped down due to going to school, and our new boss took over. All of us were nervous as our old boss was not exactly the greatest, and the replacement was a stickler for the rules. I noticed an issue with some of how the tasks were assigned the first week of January. The new boss had assigned, let's say, Eric, a task that was impossible for them to do due to how tall they were. And we are required to take photos of equipment gauges for the client, and said gauges were out of Eric's reach. I called the new boss in regards to the issue and informed him that I would gladly make sure the task would get done so that the company would not get fined for incomplete tasks. Said boss told me not to do the task and that Eric should be able to handle it. I said, okay, put the phone down, never thought of this issue again. 3 days ago, in the app we used to communicate as a team, boss was furious. Several tasks had not been completed, and they needed reasons as to why. If you remember back to the start of January, I asked my boss if I could take the tasks off someone else's hands to make sure they were done, and ironically, one of said weekly tasks was the one I offered to do. The others were not done as everyone had been shuffled around due to the termination of a coworker, and not everyone had been trained on the tasks that they were asked to complete. Normally, I avoid even responding to posts or comments on said app. I only have it to grab my work schedule, and then I log out of it for the rest of the week. I even have the app's notifications disabled. However, she was blaming the team for not getting the task done and looking to scapegoat people. So for the first time, I decided just to let go and call her and call out her hypocritical self out. I responded stating, at the beginning of January, I offered to do said task for you. You told me not to. I told you why I should do said task. You still told me not to. And now, because said task is not done, you are in a state of panic. Not my task, not my problem. Boss is now maliciously ignoring my calls and avoiding eye contact with me completely. Everyone, including the client, knows I offered to complete said tasks, and she literally has nothing to say to defend herself. Perhaps next time she'll listen to what I have to say. Top comment says, at least you pointed At least he pointed an official channel. Do you have minimum protection from retaliation? OP says, yes, thankfully. I learned from several previous jobs that keep records of everything. All my emails and messages are backed up on a private account, so if I get any backlash, I'll just send everything to HR and let them deal with it. I also have taken screenshots of the missed calls and proof that the one time I used my wife's phone to call, my boss actually picked up. Second top comment. I had a new director start, and his first week joined an outage call where all the network engineers had already joined because of the severity. We were investigating what we thought was important because of our knowledge of the infrastructure. Director decided not enough was being said, even though we were updating each other and moving on to the next things. So he took control and started assigning everyone on the call things to do. Then he would go around the list of people for updates. He was misdirecting people to check things that had nothing to do with the issue or even the right data center. When someone tried telling him this, he told them to do as they were told. After an hour of this, he forgot me, so I just waited to be called again to give my update. He forgot about me for like 30 minutes. He finally gets back to me and asks for my updates and gives me grief for taking so long. I called him out on the call saying we had a direction. We were working things that we knew are related to the issue. You had me looking in the wrong data center because you aren't familiar with our infrastructure. But you also told us to do as we were told because your 1 week on the job is apparently better than our collective 40 years of experience with this infrastructure. So I did what you demanded rather than what I thought was important. You should own the results of your actions and not blame others. He responded, do whatever you want. 10 minutes later, I fixed the issue. For the next couple of years, he wouldn't reply to my hellos in the morning, wouldn't reply to emails, gave credit for my ideas to someone else. A few months before I left the company, I asked our SVP in division-wide meeting how long we can expect to wait for replies to emails from his direct reports. SVP said 24 hours max. I said, okay, I've been waiting 3 months for replies to emails I had sent to director on this project, or on the project SVP had assigned me. SVP said he'd take care of it. A few weeks before I left the company, we had a division-wide all-hands meeting. During the Q&A, I asked the SVP if the 24-hour rule was still in place. SVP said yes. So I said director still hasn't replied to the emails I brought up the last time. Won't meet with me. Won't even talk to me unless other people are in a meeting, and which he refuses to discuss off-topic things. And it says we have to table discussion of on-topic things. And it has halted work on the project even though I got it through the green light committee and they approved a 7-figure budget. SVP said he'd handle it. I got my annual review a few weeks later, got a 0 raise, 0 bonus, and I quit on the spot. Director quit a few weeks later, only person I know of at the company that didn't get a going away lunch. They asked me to come back. I just laughed. The project died on the vine. SVP left the company. Moral of the story? Just because you have the power doesn't mean you're right. Just because you're right doesn't mean you'll win. Just because you win the battle doesn't mean you will win the war. If you can't manage your people, you don't belong in management. Thanks for listening. I hope I will be more consistent with these videos. It's been a bit of a challenge lately. But see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye.